Hi, everybody. Pasha. Welcome to the Agency Operators Podcast. Today, I'm joined by Mina Elias of Trivium Group. How you doing, Mina?
Great, man. Excited to be here. Excited to chat and drop some knowledge.
Awesome. Happy you made it. And yeah, there's a lot to cover. But before that, uh, I understand that you grew quite a sizable agency in a fairly short amount of time relative to many of the other people that I've spoken with. So I'm definitely interested to hear that story. And let's take it back and just talk a little bit about how did you position yourself to even start Trivium Group, and know what to do, how to set it up, get the right processes and people in place and everything. I know that you have an MMA nutrition brand. You're a chemical engineer, right? So you probably started somewhere around there, but just all the people skills and the management and everything like that is it's pretty impressive. So talk a little bit about how did you end up as CEO of Trivium?
Yeah, yeah. I want to dive into it because there's a lot of like good learning lessons here. So I started back in 2018, right? So up until I graduated college 2014, right? Graduated top of my class as a chemical engineer. Got my master's in 2016, and so I worked up the corporate ladder up until 2018. 2018 Up until 2018, I was fully convinced that my life's mission was to become the best engineer, work my way up a company, and that's it. I was going to be the best engineer. And then I realized that everything is a scam. Like this whole working for corporations is a scam. And I mean, it's good for some people, right? But for me, as my personality type, now you'll talk to a lot of other entrepreneurs and they'll be like, oh, Mina, you could tell he was born to be an entrepreneur, right? But I never knew that. I always thought that entrepreneurs, it was either you're either a joke or like you're a very big company. And but I didn't understand like that path, right? So I wasn't going in to get into entrepreneurship. But then when I realized like I'm going from job to job, like working for other people, like they treat me like shit, like I'm growing so fast, and no one wants to like help pay me more or whatever, that they're always just saying, hey, stay in your box. um I decided to start a supplement brand just out of passion. So I created MMA Nutrition, and I tried to get it into gyms and supplement stores, and it didn't work out. So I went to Amazon because that's where I was buying all of my supplements. So I got it on Amazon, and that's when I went super obsessive, and I watched every single YouTube video, read every single blog, talked to every single person I could get my hands on, went to every single meetup, and I was just taking. And back then, by 2018, people didn't know honestly what they were talking about. Like there was very few people that were killing it, and I know them, and then everyone else was just like making shit up. And so I was getting so much bad information, but I was trying every single thing, and I was testing and I was documenting. So I was learning, but that was the wrong way of learning, if you ask me. And I'll explain in a second. So I was able to grow that brand. I launched in November of 2018, and by December of 2019, it was doing 94,000 a month in revenue. So I grew it pretty fast. I actually also launched a second company called Lapura, which is a women's health brand. And I think in the first 30 days, it did 30K. And then the second 30 days, it was doing 50K a month with zero ad spend. It was fully based on influencers and stuff like that. So I kind of learned so much, and I figured out how to do Amazon, right? I wasn't an expert or anything. I was just really good at I figured out how to do supplements on Amazon. I figured out how to get reviews. I figured out how to run PPC because I was an engineer and I was super meticulous about like testing every single thing and figuring things out. But that was the slow way of learning. That was the bad way of learning, is just to make every single mistake under the book. So what happened was the December 2019, I was doing fine. But if you understand owning a supplement brand, it is very cash flow intensive. So you have to keep reinvesting. And then I have one bad month, or Amazon shuts me down for some stupid thing, and I lose all my money. And now I'm scrambling, and I'm like, it wasn't a secure feeling. So whatever, right? It is what it is. But COVID hits, and so during COVID, I decided to get on podcasts like this and share everything that I learned about how to grow my brand. So I got on one podcast a week, and 6 months in, like, yeah, 4 to 6 months in, people are like, dude, I see you everywhere. You are literally like, I can't open Facebook without seeing your post. I can't, without seeing someone post about you. I can't open LinkedIn without, like, you're everywhere. And I'm like, that was my goal. That was my plan. My plan was for everyone to know who I was. I had nothing to sell at the time. I was just, doing this because I wanted to add value. And I knew that having a big personal brand was eventually going to pay off. So October rolls around, October of 2020. Someone hits me up and they're like, "Hey man, we heard you're the best in the space when it comes to PPC. I'd like to hire you or interview you to train an aggregator's in-house team." And so this aggregator had raised like 300 million, bought a bunch of brands, hired a bunch of people, and they needed like the best of the best to train them on Amazon strategies, specifically PPC. So I interviewed with them. They loved me. They're like, "Okay, we're going to hire you, but first we need you to show how good you are. Run one of our brands." So I ran one of their brands. It was a kitchen brand. And 4 months later, the guy hops on a call with me. He's like, "Let me show you. This is you. This is your performance. You grow the brand in 4 months by 38%, revenue and profit. And then this is all the other agencies that we have." And there's like all bad results: 5% growth, negative 5% growth, negative 10% growth, plus 10% growth, like all over the place. Nothing good, nothing that good. And so I was like, wow, I'm actually really good. And he showed me who the agencies were. And those were agencies that were really big and really established. These are the agencies that you would probably go to hire right now. So I was like, wow, like I'm really good at this shit. And it's been like all of 2020, ever since I started doing the podcast, I was getting messages nonstop. "Can you please run my brand for me? Can I hire you? Can you do consulting?" Blah, blah. And I was like, no, no, no. I'm just focused on building my own brand, MMA Nutrition. I want to get it to $100 million brand, whatever. I'm focused. And I had made the mistake in the past of like starting La Pura, which is that women's supplement brand, and then starting this, and I started like a bunch of stuff that didn't end up panning out, and that lack of focus was bad. So that's why I wanted to stay focused on one thing, which is my business. But then in those 4 months when they hired me, it was me and one employee who was running all of my PPC, and I had trained him. He was in college when I started, paid him $200 a month, and I trained him on everything PPC. He became really good at PPC. He graduated college. I started paying him a full time salary, and from there, like he basically knew how to do everything. I would just give him strategy. I would be like, "Okay, we need to do this. We need to scale this, optimize this here," and he goes and does everything and understands it. Um, and so they paid me 6 grand a month to do this. And it took me like 3 hours a week, 4 hours a week max to do this type of work. And I was like, wow, like this is crazy. This is really good money. And it feels way more secure than MMA Nutrition, which is like on Amazon is like this and like this all the time. Now it's much more stable, but before it was less stable. And it also now I'm not depending my bills, and salary doesn't come out of that, right? So if a couple weeks ago or maybe a month ago, I had a week where everything was down, right? Because some issue with certificate of analysis, another issue with out of stock. So I didn't care. I was like, okay, it's gonna come back up eventually. I'm gonna fix it. I was obviously working hard to fix it, but I didn't feel like I couldn't pay my bills because of it. So it just kind of was all at the right time, and I was like, I'm starting this agency. Like I clearly am the best. Everyone knows about me. They keep asking, and this was pretty well leveraged, right? One employee, 4 hours a week. I was able to get 6 grand. Imagine if I multiply that by 4. That's 24 grand a month in profit, which I had never seen before. So I was like, that's what I'm gonna do. So I created the agency, and then I went on and every single podcast I went on again, and I said everyone needs to know that I have an agency, and I spoke on stage and all that kind of stuff. So the thing that I did differently though with Trivium is I learned from MMA and I learned from Rapira. So in MMA, like if you asked me, let's say 2 years in, right, and I just did this video on my YouTube channel. It's called my YouTube channel is called Mina Elias. You can go check it out. I did a video with Rob. So Rob is this guy that has been in the Amazon game since 2015, even earlier. He was consulting brands and then built a brand, scaled it to 30 million and sold it. And I'm like, people ask me like, what's one thing you would do different? I was like, one thing that I would do different is when I started MMA Nutrition, I would have reached out to Rob and then everything I can to go work for him and quit my job instead of spending 6 months working on my business and working a full-time engineering job. I would have quit that and worked for Rob, because then I would have learned everything from him and been able to put all of that into my business. So I'll have a full-time job that's paying me, and I'm growing and I'm learning, and I'm putting all of that knowledge and investment back into my brand, and it was gonna grow much better. And so this time I'm like, okay, I'm not gonna make the same mistake. So as soon as I launched Trivium, a few months in, I'm like, I think it was around June, right? I launched it in like March officially. Took in a couple clients, and then June, I'm like, I need to find someone like a consultant. So I went and I found the COO of an 8-figure agency. I reached out to a bunch of people, and then I found this COO of an 8-figure agency. I got connected to them, and I liked him, and I ended up hiring him. And once every an hour every 2 weeks, he would spend with me on the phone. We would go through every single thing in my business, and he'd be like, okay, these are the things that we need to focus on. This is how you should fix them. This is what you should do. He would advise me. He would give me resources, templates. He's like, here's an example of like how we did this. Here's an example, and I basically got all of that knowledge. And then a few months after that, so around October, I reached out to the richest guy I know, right? This guy is the founder, like ex-founder of, Jessica Alba's brand. He's like built a massive VC company. And so I'm like, who do you know that fits this criteria? Someone who's older, who's built an 8-figure brand, and maybe like chilling or sold it, like I can ask him about like X, Y, and Z. I was very descriptive, and he's like, I have a guy actually. He just exited his business, was doing 20 million a year. He made a lot of money, and he's chilling now. And he was chilling in Hawaii. So he connects me with this guy, and then that becomes my mentor. And then this guy, like the consultant was great, right? Because he was very tactical. But this guy could literally see 6 months into the future of my business. And to this day, right? He's still my mentor. And we sit down and have a conversation and says, you need to fix this thing, right? You need to figure out that thing. And it will take many times for him saying that, and then eventually it becomes like a combination of pain from that issue and his advice in the back of my mind, and I'm like, I need to take action, and then I take action, and then it improves everything. And so those two things, I would say, are what allowed me to, I mean, obviously having the personal brand, it was huge, right? Because that's my lead flow. But having those two people advise me on hiring, recruiting, operations, all that stuff, finances, that is what allowed me to grow my agency so fast.
Very cool. That's an amazing story, man.
Yeah.
So the I guess the pinnacle of it all is having an incredible mentor, where you
Hmm.
have somebody that could really see from a bird's eye view and say, man, if you're going to continue down this road, this is where you're going to end up. So now you need to pivot and try this. And so you follow those instructions or that advice, and that's what helped you to kind of scale and make, and I guess avoid making some mistakes, right?
Exactly, because if you think about it, scaling, anyone can scale. Like I just built this brand right from 0 to 4 million in 2 or 3 years, right? If I lose the company or I sell it and I start another company, I bet you I can go from 0 to 4 million in 1.5 years, right? Half the time, right? Because I already know what to do. So all I'm doing is I'm doing the same thing, but instead of it being me knowing what to do, it's other people knowing what to do, telling me what to do. And when it comes to consultants, I have one in each category, right? So I'll have a sales consultant, which we have someone like kind of like looking at our team, what are our closers doing, what are our email, templates, how do they look like, how's our pipeline set up. So I have a sales consultant, I have a finance consultant, someone who's looking at my finances and giving me advice. I have a marketing consultant, someone who's answering like marketing questions, like how should I do this sort of promotion or this ad, or how should I grow my YouTube, et cetera, et cetera. And so I just go and I seek out people who have been there, done that, who have achieved the success that I want in a specific area. Some of them can be founders, others can be employees, very high level employees of much bigger companies. And I'm like, hey, can I pay for your time? It's not that much, right? Like a regular employee, maybe 200, 300 an hour, right, would be more than enough. And then all of your questions, you just ask and you get an answer, right? Masterminds help with that too, because masterminds, you're asking different people who are above you and below you, and you're seeing questions from a lot of different people. So there's a constant influx of like, you're learning from everyone much faster. And so that, I would say, like having a mentor that is has been there and done that, exactly what you want to achieve, and then being surrounded by also consultants that are specialty, like subject matter experts that can come in, like, because my mentor is not going to be able to advise on how to grow my YouTube channel, right? He's like, I didn't do a YouTube channel. All I did was I spoke on stage, I hosted these dinners with the VCs, and I got all these referrals. And I'm like, okay, well, this is not the strategy that I'm doing. I need someone who can help me do a different strategy, like grow my YouTube channel and get a lot of leads from them. So who has grown a YouTube channel, got a lot of leads from them? Qasim from Solutions 8. He did that, right? So I'll reach out to him. Qasim, what's up? I want to hire you for an hour, like every couple of weeks. Okay, it's 500 an hour, 1,000 an hour. Perfect. I pay him 500, pay him 1,000. I come with a list of questions. I tell him, like, this is what I want to achieve. What do you think, we should do? And then he's like, this is what you should focus on right now. And so for the next 2 weeks, I take action very aggressively. And then 2 weeks later, I'm like, hey, I implemented everything you told me. Here's the results. What should I do next? And that's it, and it's basically someone who's already done it, just telling you this is what you should do. And then if you follow their advice and you take enough action, it works.
That's very smart, man. And I like how this model can be applied not just to building an agency in the Amazon space, but to building any company or doing anything that you want to be successful at, right? You just go and you find somebody that has walked that path in front of you and just follow their footsteps. Even though you're making your own footsteps, they can help to see the big picture. And I started this podcast with the intention to connect with people and provide value, provide content for those who are interested in listening and watching. But then, I'm at episode 20 with you here today. And at this point, I can say, wow, I've actually set up something for myself personally. It's like a fractionalized mentorship where I get to
Hmm.
speak with a lot of people who have walked the path in front of me, grown bigger agencies in most cases. And then just hearing the stories is like, okay, I can take from this and take from that. And, it's very valuable. So still with the mentorship, I imagine there was a lot of challenges anyway, because the implementation, taking action, you're still going to run into issues, right? So what were some of the biggest issues that you had to face in growing the agency? Was hiring a difficult thing for you, because that was something that's not really, it's not like the typical buy from a manufacturer, sell on Amazon type of model. Now you're dealing with people, personality, schedules, and clients, and all of that. So what were some of those challenges?
Yeah, I mean, you nailed it. I would say my first and biggest, most painful challenge was hiring. So, in a couple of ways, right? Hiring has become a challenge multiple times. So, the first time that was a challenge, I obviously had no problem getting leads because of how big of a personal brand I had. So, I was getting leads all the time, and I laid out my entire, financial projections, and I showed it to my mentor, and I said, "Look, this is how much I'm going to grow month over month." And he's like, amazing, that's great. He's like, how are your hiring projections? Do they match it? And I'm like, hiring projections? What does that mean? He's like, well, as you're growing, your fulfillment needs to grow. And so you need to have a very clear understanding of how many people you need to fulfill that level of revenue. And then, any sort of management and structure around that stuff. Like, do you have that built out? And I said, no, I don't have it built out. And my process of hiring was, asking employees for other referrals, asking people for if they know anyone, posting a job on onlinejobs.ph and, praying that it works. That was not a good hiring. That's not a good way to hire, right? So the first issue happened when my sales kept going up and I ran out of people, and it was so painful because it's all this revenue that I could not take because I'm like, we're out of capacity. I can't work with you right now, maybe in a month. And so I had to create a system the same way we have sales, right? Leads, audits, sales calls, turning them into clients. I needed the same with the recruiting. So I needed job posts that, everywhere, that created leads that then all got interviewed, and then all got distilled into the top candidates that then I, hired. And it needed to be a robust hiring process where, they would have to do a test, and then we'd check the references, whatever, so that I was getting kind of good people at the end. And so I hired an internal recruiter, and we went very, very hard on building a process. And so we fixed that issue, right? So the first issue was acquiring talent, right? That was hard. The second issue, which I'm facing right now, I think we're almost out of the, the whatever it's called, out of the deep waters, and we're back into like a good place, was hiring the right people. And so we're 85 employees, right? So to think that you're going to hire the right people for 85 people, it's tough, right? And so what we were doing was, we'd post the jobs, we'd get a lot of people, we have an HR interview, they would check their resume and all that stuff to make sure it matches perfect. Then they would do a test. Then, we'd do an interview with one of our managers, and then if they looked like they were good, we would hire them, and then we'd onboard them, whatever. That is a very rudimentary way of hiring, right? Because okay, it tells you that they can do a few tasks, but it doesn't tell you if they're a good culture fit. It doesn't tell you if they have the right personality for that role. It misses a lot of things. So we just recently implemented the culture index. And I think that is changing the game for us. So the culture index is basically, and this is crazy, right? Because the way I got introduced to that was from Stephen Pope, my Amazon guy, much bigger agency, much better than I am. And he's like, you have to get on this. And it'll solve a lot of your people issues. So he connected me with the guy. And basically, I had 20 of my employees fill out that culture index. I hopped on a call. This guy had never met me or my employees, and then started telling me this person, like they're not a good fit for that role. They're probably gonna quit soon. That person, you're probably not gonna be happy with them. You're gonna eventually fire them. That person seems like they're very stressed. If you don't fix that right away, they're gonna quit. That person, like they're too emotional. Like they're probably not. And it was so spot on.
Wow.
I couldn't believe it. Every person he said was gonna quit ended up quitting. Every person he said I was gonna fire, we ended up firing. And I'm like, damn, this guy basically was able to tell the future based on a survey, a simple survey, like takes 3 minutes to fill out, that asks you a bunch of, what adjectives best describe how you feel. And so we now incorporate culture index. And so we've changed our recruiting, not just to factor culture index, but number one, we needed to bring in a senior HR manager, a senior HR and recruiter, someone who understands who I am as a person, understands our company is a very high level person, so that when they meet with people, they're like, yeah, this person thinks the right way. This person's going to take over an Amazon account and he's going to strategize. He's going to go above and beyond. He knows how to communicate with people. He knows when a client says like, your work sucks, he's going to be like, okay, like, I'm sorry that you feel that way. Like, how can, let's get on a call. Let's try and fix it. So like they're going to be able to detect that. Right. And then putting in the culture index, which then helps us predict this personality type works, this personality type doesn't work. I believe the combination of that should, solve our issues. But the reason that I wanted to spend some time explaining this is because if you ask me, I've talked to so many incredible entrepreneurs. One of the things that they all have in common is they are incredible at hiring. They know how to hire the best people. They know how to find the best people, and they know how to hire the best people. Whether they're blessed because their network is massive, and like whenever they want to hire someone, they find good people, or they've dialed in their hiring. They understand who's going to be a good fit, who's not going to be a good fit. All that kind of stuff, and they're able to identify like, this is an A player, I'm going to bring them on, I'm going to incentivize them, I'm going to keep them with me for a long time. Those people succeed, and those are the biggest entrepreneurs I know. They've mastered that skill. And so for me, there's a few skills that I think I need to master if I want to hit the $100 million mark. Right. Number one, I need to master hiring. I need to be able to identify the best people, the best culture fit, bring them into my organization, incentivize them, and build like a killer team. Right. Number one. Number two, marketing. So I need to understand how to generate leads, whether that's through paid, through outbound, through social media, creating content, through lead magnets and nurturing, whatever it may be. I need to become incredibly good at marketing and generating leads. And then number three is sales. Right. So it's critical that I understand how to close leads like as they come in. And so another weakness that I had was, and you might not even believe this, up until like 4 months ago, I was the number one salesperson in the company. It was me, and then I had one guy that was part time, also has an agency. He would just take calls from me, and he would basically sell people. They would either close on the call, or if they didn't, they were then followed up through an email until they did, or they got another call or something like that. Very, very, very bad way of doing sales. And so my mentor again said, Mina, this is not a real sales team. You're gonna struggle. And we hit a certain revenue number, and then we just plateaued. Why? Because with the leads coming in, we were not able to close enough. The only way that we were going to be able to close enough was if I hopped on all the sales calls and I was doing all the closing. And if and not only that, like I also had someone doing really good follow-up. And so because it's not a realistic thing, I had to fix it. I had to hire two closers. I had to hire setters. I had to hire a sales manager. I had to hire a sales coordinator. And we needed to build a real sales team that when leads came in, they were able to nurture them, get them on calls, close them, give them, whatever they needed, follow up with them. If they didn't close, follow up with them later. We need to push that back into marketing to nurture them, to get them back on calls and so on. So, those I would say are the top three skills, because they're very important if you ask me. They're not I don't want to say that this is the only things you need, because you also need to be very good at fulfillment. You need to understand what you need to do and how to, reduce your churn. That was a problem, right? So for a long time, our churn was great. We were at, let's say 7% or 6%. And then all of a sudden our churn spiked. And then we realized, okay, what is our onboarding system like? Our onboarding system is weak. We don't have it's not like in ClickUp where you have to, like, there was a checklist, but was it actually being followed through? Was there automatic reminders saying, hey, it's been 24 hours since this step, why haven't you done this next step? You know what I mean? There wasn't someone auditing all the onboarding channels and saying, hey, this guy's in onboarding and no one sent him a message today, we need to send him a message. There was no one auditing all the accounts every single week to make sure that no one missed anything, because everyone's human, and everyone's going to miss stuff. So fulfillment and making sure that churn is low, because for a very long time we had really good sales, not long time, but for a period of time we had very good sales, but also very high churn. And so the company was growing so slow. And so when we fixed the sales, we also fixed the churn. Now the company started growing again. And so those are a bunch of painful lessons. And another important category is finances. So we've gone very, very far in terms of finances, where it used to be, okay, we get a P&L and I know what my profit and loss is, but that was, I didn't have a budget, right? And so we started building budgets, and in those budgets we would factor in, okay, this is everything that we're spending on right now, what else do I want to buy? So for example, I wanted to invest into a Twitter ghostwriter. Okay, so instead of just I'm just going to spend the money and invest in because I have no self-control, it's like, okay, what does my P&L look like every month? This month I'm making 85K, next month I'm making 100K, and the next month I'm making 115K. So I'm like, okay, cool. When I hit 100K, which is next month, I'm going to add that expense of the Twitter ghostwriter. I'm also going to add the expense of this YouTube thumbnail editor, for example. What's my P&L now? Oh, okay, it's only 92K. Okay, that's fine. I'll take that, because I expect that they're going to help me grow in the long term. So now our finances went from just P&L, and then I'm just looking at my numbers every month, to I have a budget and I will not spend until I plug in that number in the budget and look at what my future profit and loss looks like. And if I like it, then I'm going to keep it. And the future profit and loss is based on us staying flat. It's not based on us growing, right? That was a big mistake that I made. I used to do the projections like this. This month we're going to do 350K. Next month we're going to do 370K. The month after we're going to do 390K. And then I would put in the expenses. I'm like, oh yeah, our profit is amazing. But then we did 350K, and then we did 352K, right? Because of a churn issue. Now I factored in all of these expenses as if we were going to do 370, but I actually did 352, and that screwed us. So then I'm like, no, if everything stays flat, how am I going to do if I add this expense? Okay, I can handle that. And my goal is to just go to 355K. So that gave me a lot of self-discipline when it came to finances and not overspending, because it can be so easy to just reinvest, and then at the end of the day you're like, where's your profits? They don't exist, right? Because you weren't playing it smart. So I would say those are the main categories I tend to try and focus on and get amazing at, because if I can master all of those categories, I know I'm gonna build an incredible agency.
Amazing. So if somebody wanted to get into the Amazon agency game, or any kind of agency game, and start from the beginning, considering this year, right? We're already halfway through. Things are getting harder. I know that, because competition is growing, just like competition on Amazon is growing. So it kind of balances out on the Amazon side, because on one hand, yes, there's more agencies. On the other hand, people need help more than ever because it's so difficult to sell. So somebody wanted to get started today. What is like the primary piece of advice from everything that you said that you would give and say, if you want to be successful, this is where you should really, really focus on right now?
Yeah, I mean, I would say adding as much value as possible, right, to the industry. So I think leads and the ability to generate revenue is going to be the lifeblood of your business. So if you add a ton of value everywhere, people will know about you, people will value you, people will give you their email and contact information, and that in itself is the ability to create money. And then from there, everything else comes, which is, okay, fulfillment. Let's start let me go and see what AMZ Optimized does. Let me see what Trivium Group does. Let me see what my Amazon guy does. Let me get all of that, see what do they do, what are they really good at, what are they not good at, like how can I create a solution that's better than everyone else, right? That's what I'm trying to do. Like I'm trying to find out, okay, what is my Amazon guy doing, what is Incrementum doing, what is AMZ Optimized doing, like, oh, they're giving these amazing reports, perfect, I'm gonna one up that, I'm gonna give even better reports. Oh, they're communicating daily, amazing, I'm gonna incorporate that. Oh, they're giving this sort of strategy, amazing, I'm gonna go and give it even more. And so the goal is to just add the most amount of value to people, right? And in exchange, the money that they pay you makes sense. They're like, oh, like this guy's giving me so much value, he's growing my brand, he's doing all this extra stuff versus everyone else. And so that's kind of would be my progression is, number one, do everything you can to add value and become recognized, because that's going to give you the ability to generate leads. And then number two, identify what everyone's doing and create a solution that's better than everyone else. And that will result in, when people come in and start working with you, you retain them. And that's it. I mean, if you're asking for like one piece of advice, it would be that.
And so how do you add value? I mean, if there's a lot of noise out there, you don't have any followers on YouTube, LinkedIn, or anything like that, but you've been in the Amazon game and you have some experience, what is the primary way to really get out there? Is it shows, maybe in person, just shake hands, or start making YouTube videos and put some paid ad behind it? Or how does that
Yeah.
work?
Yeah, I don't think shows. I think you can go out to a show and then learn what people want, right? And so the theme for me is always give the people what they want. So maybe I like to do LinkedIn, right? But like people are like, I am not really learning that much from you on LinkedIn, but I do YouTube, and they're like, Mina, I love your YouTube, it's so good. So I would go out to a show and then talk to 100 sellers, right? And say, what would be very useful for you, would this type of content, what about like if I made sheets for you, like resources, tools. And then maybe you become that guy who makes a bunch of amazing tools in Google Sheets, and they're beautiful. You put them behind an opt-in, and then you start creating YouTube videos or Facebook posts or whatever, and you start distributing them. Another way to add value would be going on podcasts and sharing everything that step by step in a very easy to replicate manner, so that someone who's listening can actually take that information and apply it, right? At the end of the day, I don't think it's our secret knowledge in this industry. I don't think it's like the secret knowledge or the secret sauce that is going to allow you to succeed. I think it's you doing the execution in a flawless way. So I think it's me going to you, for example, let's say I'm an agency that helps agencies. I'm like, this is exactly how you should grow your YouTube channel. You're going to identify keywords, you're going to go look at the titles, you're going to create a better clickbaity title, you're going to create a thumbnail that is a complementary to it, that has a high click-through rate, then you're going to come up with a script, you need a hook, blah, blah, blah. And I give you everything, and you start doing it, you're like, fuck man, this is so much. Mina, how much would it cost if I could just hire you to hire your team to do this for me, right? Because I know what needs to be done, I just don't have the capacity or the bandwidth. I'm either going to do it myself, I don't have the bandwidth, or I need to hire someone, but then do I know if they're doing a good job? But you told me everything that I should be doing, and it makes sense. Can you just do it for me? And I'm going to know if it's done right or wrong because I listened to you. So that is, in my opinion, the way to go about it is by educating people and breaking things down step by step, giving them everything, and then selling them the execution.
Amazing. Makes a lot of sense. As long as you're building yourself up as an authority, you become an authority that way naturally, right? You're just putting it out there over time, and just it starts to add up.
So here's the key with authority. The way that I built my authority is by not being an authority, right? And that's where a lot of people I noticed failed. There's so many people that try to build their authority by being authorities. So coming in, you'll notice throughout this entire conversation, I didn't really tell people what to do. I told people what I did and what worked for me and what didn't work for me. And I think that's the best way to build authority, right? Because I went on podcasts and I didn't say this is what you should do, or when someone made a Facebook post and I commented, I didn't say this is what you should do. I said, okay, let's talk about auto campaigns. I used to do an auto campaign with all the match types: close match, loose match, complements, and substitutes, right? And I would notice that the budget would go to complements and it would go to loose match, and it didn't perform that well, right? Because they're not that good. And then I would lower the bids and whatever, and it just kind of didn't work that well. So when I broke the campaigns up, close match on its own, loose match on its own, complement, substitutes, I was able to control the bid and the budget for loose match and complements. And then close match and substitutes, which did really well, I gave them a much bigger bid. I gave them a bigger budget, and I was able to add negatives to anything that didn't work, and those campaigns performed amazing. So I'm not telling you what to do, I'm just telling you what worked for me. And by me doing that consistently, they just saw that this guy is doing so many things, and thank you for sharing with us like those things. You're not telling us what to do, but when we try them out, it actually ends up working. This guy is an authority, this guy knows what he's doing. And that's how I built my authority. And it was fully off of and I learned this from Stephen Black, because I noticed Stephen Black would never say you should do this. He would always say, this is what I've tried, this is what's worked for me, this is what I did. And people were like, this guy is the best, right? Because he never claimed to be an expert. He just did stuff and shared his outcome.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. And I think also people have a tendency not to like as much to be taught and say, this is the only way. It's really just about listening to a story and just making your own understanding of it in your own interpretation. And I think that does work the best. As long as you're persistent and consistent, it seems like that's the thing in terms of what I've seen as a big hurdle to jump over is you start, you do a little bit, you're like, I don't know if this is really
Not working.
working, right?
Yeah.
You have to just push through that barrier and just keep going, be persistent. And over time, you start getting some result, right? And then you get little signals that there's signs of life. Keep going, keep going. And then it builds and builds. And I think that once you get to a certain point, it starts to become exponential. I'm sure you've seen that, right?
That's it. That's
And
exactly how it was with me. Yeah. It was
yeah,
just I put my head down and I did not look at the outcome, and I just did for a year. And then it's like a year later, you're like, wow, the result is there. But it was, Facebook posts and not getting little to no engagements, YouTube videos with very little views, podcasts where I don't even know if anyone heard me on the podcast.
mm,
Instagram posts with 20 likes and 10 likes, you know what I mean? And then eventually you do it for long enough over time consistently, and you're adding so much value. And remember this, like, you put out all this content. If someone discovers me today, right, like you guys are listening to this podcast, you're gonna find out who Mina Elias is. You're gonna be like, this guy is great, I liked his information. And then you're gonna go back and you're gonna see all of the content that I put out there. And then so me years later, all of my old content is starts getting the views. So now maybe you look at some of my old content, it has on YouTube 2,000 views, 3,000 views. You know what I mean? When I posted it, it got 300 views, 400 views, and I'm like, oh man, like, is this video actually, like, was it worth it? I mean, maybe it's not worth it now, but eventually it all adds up.
100%. Mina, thank you for all these nuggets of gold. I appreciate your time sharing all this. This has been very valuable to me, hopefully to the listeners as well. Any final thoughts you want to share about Trivium or anything?
Yeah, I mean, I just want to leave. I know a lot of people will ask, what's like if you were to start, what would you focus on when it comes to marketing? For me, what works the best, what worked the best, and looking back at all of the data points that we have, is podcasts. So going on podcasts, sharing everything that from your experience, step by step, and adding as much value as possible, so that the people listening can be better and can do it themselves. That's number one. That will expose you to a lot of audience, other people's audience that you don't have. And then number two, building your YouTube. And so, again, identifying all of the questions that people have. Just think about it this way. Imagine you're going to get leads, and they're going to ask you, like, how do you do PPC? How do you optimize? How do you change? How do you improve click-through rate? If you did a video on every single thing, is just very broken down step by step, and put it on YouTube, over time, everyone who's listening to you on podcasts will then want to listen to more of you. So they will find you on YouTube, and they will be immersed in your, information on YouTube and your content, and then they'll convert into a lead. And so if you were starting out and you want to grow your agency, this is the way that I would do it. If I were starting, I mean, when I go into a different industry, this is exactly what I'm going to do. Podcasts, so everyone knows me. I mean, first I'm going to master the stuff, then podcasts, so everyone knows me, and then YouTube videos, so everyone's nurtured by me, and rinse and repeat.
Clear, actionable. I like it.
Yeah.
Thank you,
Awesome.
Mina. I appreciate it, man.
My pleasure. If you guys want to hit me up on Instagram at the Mina Elias, and then on YouTube, Mina Elias, go learn some more.
Check him out. Thanks everyone for watching. Till the next one.